All right, so let's walk through this paver sealing job step by step. Step one is really just preparing that hardscape by removing any grease, paint, or rust, or anything else that we see on the pavers themselves. There's lots of different chemicals, different products that you can use to help you with this. And step one is really just making sure that we're getting that on there. And then the next piece is typically agitating it with a brush or something so that we can get it off of the hardscape itself. So while I'm doing this, we're also starting the surface cleaner portion so that way we can really start to clean up these pavers before blowing out the joints. Next up is making sure that we thoroughly surface clean all of the pavers so that way we can get them nice and clean. The joints are still going to need to be hit with a pressure washer wand to really clear those out in depth, but we want to make sure that the tops of the pavers, the surface of the pavers, is as clean as possible. So we're going to continue to go over those with the surface cleaner while pushing that dirt, debris that's coming up towards the end of the driveway and into the road, so that way we're getting it off of the hardscape itself. After our surface cleaning is complete, we're going to use a more aggressive nozzle on the pressure washer lance so that way we can actually go in between all the joints of the pavers, blast out any algae, debris, or excess sand that might be sitting in there so that way we can get a really clean joint as we go in with the next step, which is going to be doing the wet sanding and making sure that we get all of that sand between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch below the paver line. Once we've blasted our joints, we want to make sure that we really do a nice prep before we start to lay down any sealant. So we're going to go in and we're going to brush any of the joints out that have any excess sand and knock that sand down. We'll also backfill in any sand as well so that way we can make it really nice and clean. And then from there, we'll blow off any of the additional sand that might be sitting on the surface or any other debris, because as you're out there and you're working all day long on these pavers, naturally you're going to have leaves or other things that might come onto the hardscape itself as well. So it's really important to have a blower on hand where you can get all of that off as you are really prepping the surface. So going through these steps of really cleaning everything up, making sure the sand is at the level that you want, as I mentioned, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch below the top of the paver there. And, really making sure that every paver, every joint is looking the way that you want it prior to putting the sealant down is really important. And also making sure that you don't have any excess sand that's sitting on top of the pavers. This is a mistake that's really easy to make, because once that sand's on top, if you seal that in, then it's going to be stuck on there when that sealant goes down. So making sure you clear all that off is important. Next, we want to make sure that we mix up our sealant and prep it for the paver seal job. We use Urasil H2O, and then we can start to apply our first coat. And once we start applying our first coat of sealant, I recommend being very liberal with that first coat as well, so you can really get it into the joints. We use a shield to make sure that we're shielding off everything that's around the home or other areas that we don't want to get overspray, particularly sidewalks and streets and different things like that. And then also we have a pump sprayer filled with water that's at the ready at all times as well, so that we can go through, and if anything does overspray, we can make sure that we clean that off. When we use the Urasil H2O, we use the 150 kit. We do a 2-to-1 ratio. So we do 2 coats of 2-to-1 after we've done all the prep work. So this is that first coat. And as I mentioned, we're going to be very generous and just really making sure that we're applying that really well so that gets a really solid first coat. And then from there, it's going to be about really just making sure that we're evening it out as we start to go in with the second coat. Now, after those 2 coats were applied, this customer really wanted a glossy shine on the top. So what we did is we did a very light, almost kind of powder coat over the top at the very, very end, where we really weren't worrying too much about the edging, but just really making sure that we're making the main parts shine as much as possible, just getting a nice light, even spray over everything. So we typically wouldn't do a third coat like this, but because the customer requested a specific type of look that we wanted to make sure that we provided, we also did this additional kind of lighter powder coat on top to really just kind of finalize it and make it shine.